Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome in. Today is Sunday, March 10th. We are going live tonight. It's 8 p.m. So we did change up our start time a little bit later this Sunday. I've noticed that a lot of you traders are coming in a little bit later through Sunday evening. So in order to capture more of you guys, we're gonna go live a little bit later from now on, starting at 8 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. Now, without further ado, let's get started on the news, right? So we're looking at Forex Factory for this coming week on this calendar. It is, this is last week. Whoops. There we go. So there we go. March 10th, right here, Sunday. We're looking at no red folder news for today, for tonight, for the Asian session. That's looking great. Now, tomorrow, Monday, March 11th, we're looking at no red folder news there either. Tuesday is when we do start seeing some red folder news. We see GBP at 3 a.m., which is London session open, New York session time. I do trade in the New York session, so whatever times you see here are based on my time zone. So keep that in mind. You can always adjust over here on the top right. Adjust it to your local time zone. Mine's adjusted to Eastern Standard Time, which is the New York session. You guys can adjust for yourselves to whatever time you are at locally, right? To make it as accurate as possible. USD over here in the morning for us as well in the New York session, right before a New York session open. And then we have red folder news here for USD as well at 1:01 p.m. Oddly enough, it's exactly 1:01 p.m. GBP on Wednesday. We're looking at GBP on Wednesday near London session open. And then we're also looking at another 1:01 p.m. USD red folder news. I don't know why it's 1:01. Why it can't just be 1 p.m. But whatever. It is what it is. Thursday, we're looking at USD right before New York open. New York open is 9:30. We're looking at 8:30 a.m. here. Right? You're looking at core PPI data. And then Friday, more USD. I feel like it's just always USD red folder news, at least 4 times a week. It's crazy, right? Like everybody else is chill, but no, not USD. Friday, we're looking at USD as well. 8:30 right before New York session open. And then we're looking at 10 a.m. after the New York session open. Right? Looking good. Let's jump on some charts. NASDAQ. We're going to start off with NASDAQ. We're going to go to the daily. I do have some fibs over here that I need to eliminate. We have a new all-time high. This is looking at the futures chart, right? So your values could be a little bit different than mine. I'm looking at the futures all-time high charts. Well, not the all-time high chart, but I'm looking at the futures charts, right? And then I'm basing my all-time high off this one over here. Let's check this out. Let's adjust this just to all-time high. We're looking at weekly. Weekly is still very much bullish. That's as clear as you can get, right? Let me clean this up a little bit for you guys. Let's go down into the daily. Daily, we identified this fair value gap over here. Has been tapped into on Thursday. And it's also been tapped into this Tuesday. So Thursday, February 29th, and then also Tuesday, March 5th. It's been tapped into about that 50% mark. Let me see. We're going to remove this daily FVG. Looks like that moved and got mitigated. And then this one is a 4-hour FVG 50% mark. Let's check it out. But on the daily, what do we see? Daily, we've already been tapped into and mitigated over here. We're going to remove that. Still saw liquidity here. Then this one's a 4-hour 50% FVG. We're going to go into these on a lower time frame. But over here, we have a fair value gap over here. That's on the daily. That one's not been mitigated yet. So we're going to mark that one out. We're going to label it daily FVG 50%. And we're going to also color it. Blue because we're bullish, right? Gonna lock that in. That coordinate for the 50% mark is about 17,299.25. You can round that out to 17,300 flat. And that's going to be your daily fair value gap 50% mark. That's going to be a point of interest for you. Don't really see much of anything else I have here. Has been tapped to and mitigated already. I'm gonna remove that. Let's go down into the 4-hour zone. 4-hour zone looks like it's been tapped to and mitigated as well. We're gonna start removing this. I think some of these moved around between last week and this week. I don't know what the heck happened here. Some of these things have moved around like crazy. This should have been like that. And then this is still solid because it tapped into it and just continued up. Yeah, something happened with these charts between last week and this week. Something moved my patterns around. That's so weird. Like this here too. That's pretty screwy. That's crazy. This tapped into it and got mitigated. No, it did not. Let me check it out. That's on the daily. Nah, we're still good. Still active. This I'm going to remove. Let's go back down into the 4-hour. How are we looking in the 4-hour? 4-hour. I mean, we're still extremely bullish. See? Looking at just a market structure over here. Higher low. Lower high, but this is a higher low. Higher low. And then higher low. Even though it's getting rejection over here at 18,700-ish. Like 18,692.25. We might even be going into like a choppiness right here. This has already been tapped into and mitigated. We're going to remove this. Gotta clean up the charts as much as possible for you guys, okay? But we can't ignore the fact that we have all these fair value gaps here after a market structure shift, which is great. That's pretty much what we're looking for. Fair value gap left after a market structure shift. That's going to be our point of interest for us to focus in on. Yeah, so right there, we're looking at 17,852.25. That's going to be a 4-hour FVG. We're going to label it as such. Lock this here. Blue because we're so bullish. 4-hour FVG 50% mark. Here I'm detecting an order block, so I'm guessing it's a higher time frame order block that's being triggered on Easy SMC. Easy Algo SMC, and that's perfectly fine because I go by Easy Algo SMC levels. We have another order block over here. Might be on a higher time frame. I don't see it here on the lower time frame. Let me just double check with this because we shouldn't be seeing order blocks unless it's on the same time frame. Check that out. All right, cool. Let's mark these fair value gaps here too. This one has been tapped into and mitigated like beautifully, which leaves these two here. This one's way too small for me to consider, so I'm just gonna focus on these two over here. I'm also gonna draw my fib levels on these two to see if it overlaps, which we should. These should be at a discount zone. This should be like at around just under 50%, so like probably like 6.2 if I can eyeball it correctly. So we're gonna go from the bottom of this wick all the way to the top over here. That's gonna be the retracement. this is just above the 0.62. Is it at the 5? Let's find out. I'm going to modify this a little bit. I want to see my 50% mark. It's exactly at the 50% mark. Okay, that's pretty cool. Everything below this point is now a discount zone. That's what we want to be focusing in on. The fact that that's overlapping right over the fair value gap gives me some additional confidence. It's also at the 50% mark. I never really play off the 50% mark, but it looks like a pretty important level here, especially with the way the structures are forming and how all these fair value gaps are being respected, as long as there's confluences involved, right? This looks like a nice little area here. If you're a supply and demand trader too, this might be a pretty nice entry for you as well. It really depends on your strategy. We have a lot of different strategies here in the Discord. Check the strategies out. If you're a pro member, you're obviously seeing this first and you obviously have access to that. I'm going to post a link in the Discord right now as well to the user strategies channel so you guys can check it out and pretty much test out the different strategies, right? Find one that works for you. And if anything, just use those strategies to base your own strategy off until you have something you're comfortable with and you become profitable off of that. The most important thing at the end of the day is to be profitable. It doesn't matter what kind of strategy you're trading, doesn't matter what kind of risk to reward you're trading, as long as your risk management is on point and you're profitable and your winners are bigger than your losers, that's where you want to go for, right? Doesn't matter what you do. I've been in plenty of situations when I'm trading live with other members in the Discord, someone shorting as I'm longing at the same time, but because we're both playing structure to structure, I get it, my win 2-1, they get their win 2-1, and we both were right, technically, right? Even though the markets has its own bias for that day, even if it was bullish, let's say, for example, it still had to pull back, and then that's when you get in. So there's no holy grail when it comes to strategies. It's just what works for you, as long as your risk management is on point. We're going to identify the zone here, the 0.5, 18009.25. That's the zone here. I'm going to mark it out. Let's lock it. Name it. 4-hour FEG 50% mark. Bop it. Pull it. Twist it. All right, 0.62, 0.705, and 0.79. They all overlap in here. That is a pretty sick confluence right there, right? So we're looking for those levels right there to overlap with any other fair value gap in order to feel comfortable and to get in the trade. That's going to be your additional confluence. The fact that all three overlap inside that one fair value gap just gives me so much confidence that that's going to have a nice rejection off of that area and continuation to the upside, right? It's going to be more likely than not. And if it's not, then it's going to be seeking this daily fair value gap 50% mark. So that's going to be the next level I'm going to be bullish on. And if not, then it's going to be over here. So for now, I'm bullish until it's not. There should be some kind of reaction here at the 0.5. If not, then it's going to have a reaction over here at the 0.705 to the 0.79. And if this breaks through and closes, candle closure at 4 hour below this number one, then it's seeking this daily fair value gap, and then that should reject upwards, because that's a daily level that holds more weight. We have this fair value gap over here that formed, but it's not really valid because there's no market structure before it. We're still going to watch it, right? Because there might be some news day where it just wicks into there, get some liquidity, continuation to the downside. So we're going to color this red. We're going to label you 4 hour FEG 50%. I'm going to color you red. We're bearish here. So we're definitely going to put red for you. Let's lock it. Pop it, pull it, twist it. All right, cool. I'm not going to go any lower than this. 1 hour time frame is mostly like for watching the entries that I'm in. 5 and 15 minute are my entry time zones. Let me remove this 1 minute because that's well, actually no, I like watching it sometimes in 1 minute just so I can give myself a little mini heart attack so I can feel alive. It's crazy, right? Some people actually do trade the 1 minute. That's more like a futures thing, I guess, or I'm not exactly sure, but I have seen some like futures and options traders just trade on the 1 minute like back to back for like a good half hour, and that's just fucking exhausting to watch. Or rather not, right? So entry in the 5 and 15 minute for me. I monitor it on the 1 hour. Or I'll look for confluences for my entries on the 1 hour. But my points of interest are always going to be marked out weekly, daily, and 4 hour. Those are the areas I'm going to be playing out, like this, and here. Looking at 18,009.25, 17,860.75, and then this daily here. Definitely set your alerts on this one. Super important. 17,296.00. All right, guys. Does anybody have any questions for me in regards to Nas? Dope. All right, cool. So moving on. We're going to go into gold. Let's check out gold. Wow, what a crazy week. So we're looking right now at the all-time high, which broke through. This is the newest all-time high, like ever. Let's double check. I'm on my monthly time frame. Yeah, guys, this is fantastic. This is FF. Fucking fantastic. All right, cool. Let's put this new all-time high over here. We're looking at 2194.44. It's going even closer. I want to see the exact all-time high. Where you at? Candle bodies on the 1 minute. 2195.09. That's our all-time high for gold ever. Pretty saucy. Pretty saucy. All right, cool. What do you guys see? Beautiful fair value gap over here. That's a weekly time frame too. This is sweet. Creating new levels for all-time highs for gold. Let's fucking go. All right, we're going to mark this out. We're going to set our alerts at 2061. Let's color this bad boy blue. You're also going to be called weekly fair value gap. 50% mark. It's beautiful right there. It looks fucking great. This one too. So depending on how this candle closure ends, this is the week coming up. This is going to be another beautiful fair value gap. But in the meantime, let's check out everything else. Closest fair value gaps we see here. This one has been tapped to and mitigated. Respected completely. Look at that. Just continuation to the upside. You can even trade these on the weekly zones. And it'll give you nice fat 2-to-1. It'll take you a while though, because each one of these candles is a week. So 4 candles is a month. So it'll take a while to clear out, but you can probably get into a lower time frame entry on these, as long as you're inside those points of interest and are able to get nice multiple RRs, risk to reward, right? So like probably like 3 or 4 to 1 RR. Let's check out daily, since those weekly ones are already identified and tapped into. Here we have a couple daily. This daily and this weekly, they overlap. So 4-hour, daily, and the weekly overlap. That's the 4-hour fair value gap over there. This is the daily here. The daily and the weekly are super close together, so I'm just going to leave it as one. That's still going to be the same one, which is... I just had you. Right? 2061. Yeah, 2061. These fair value gaps over here are way too small for my liking, and they're way too high too, right? So look, we're going to pull from bottom of this structure all the way top to the reversal. right? So what I'm looking at is everything below the 0.5 line. So I'm only interested in 0.62, 705, and 79. 79 and 705, they overlap within the weekly fair value gap and also overlapping the daily and 4-hour. So this area here is going to be my highest point of interest. And then this area here, this fair value gap, is going to be another point of interest for me because it's overlapping the 0.62. This one might be reversed on a lower time frame. These hold a lot more weight for me, that's for sure. But I can't ignore this one because it's a pretty sizable fair value gap. And also all these fair value gaps come after a market structure shift. So the fact that this is below the 0.5, it's already at a discount. This is going to be a lot more confluence is going on over here, a lot stronger, a lot higher probability of reversal, but something's going to happen here too. So we're going to identify this. We're going to definitely send an alert here. Lower time frames, you can definitely get something nice out of this. But my biggest bias is action in this area here, highest probability in here as well. Over here, it's 2098.84. That's the 50% mark of this fair value gap. We're going to label it as well. And what are you? You're daily. Daily fair value gap, 50% mark. Let's lock that. This fair value gap, this one and this one are really, really tiny. And they're also not at the discount zone. Excuse me. I almost said premium. They're not at the discount zone, so I don't want them. Let's go down to 4-hour. See what do we see on the 4-hour. Tiny, tiny fair value gaps there. Tiny 4-hour fair value gap there. Then we also see fair value gap over here overlapping with the 0.62. We already have that identified. So this is between these two fair value gaps. That's identified. And then this 4-hour one overlaps with the daily and the weekly. That's identified. This one's been tapped into. This one's been tapped into. And yeah. There's only this one that's the 4-hour and daily fair value gap 50% mark. That's 2010.10. But we're pretty much focusing in on these over here. So just to remind you guys, you're looking at 2099. You're also looking at 2070 and 2061, if I remember correctly. Yep, that's exactly it. Those are the points of interest that you're going to be looking at. Remember, the broker charts are going to be a little bit different. This one's using ACAP. So pretty much just go based off the PD arrays that you see here posted on my screen, which are going to be the fair value gaps. You're looking for the 50% mark of those fair value gaps. So the pricing might be a little bit different because of brokers, but the actual process and bias is the same. We're looking at that 50% mark, whatever that 50% mark is. These are the candles that we have chosen. And then these are the candles and areas that we've chosen based on the fib levels as well. Fib levels are really important in ICT, also called smart money concepts. When it comes to like any areas that are below 50%, anything above it is a premium zone. So you want to short that. Anything below the 50% mark, you want to long. That's called the discount zone. Now, does anybody have any questions for me when it comes to gold? All right, we're looking good now. Let's move on to some Forex pairs. Euro USD. Euro USD. See, I was expecting this to break out and dump, but it did not. Looks like it's retesting this area over here, which has already been mitigated, but it just wants to seek it again. And that's perfectly fine because we wanted to see it somehow come back and test out this area here. So this area here has already been tapped in and mitigated, so there's nothing really holding it back. I want to see it retest this area here, which is July 2023 weekly. So I'm going to delete that. Let's see what the fibs are telling me from here to here. Let's remove this 0.5. 0.5 is not very important. These are the levels that are important. Crazy how it just didn't drop and go into that zone over here, this point of interest. But I mean, that's pretty much how price action is. The market's going to play out how it wants to. It's just like screw everything. Even though it overlapped right there too. That's crazy. Let's check you out. So 0.79 is my confluence with this weekly, July 2023 weekly fair value gap. So in theory, it should tap into this zone here, then reject, then ping pong off this daily 4-hour fair value gap and then come back up, or retesting somewhere in halfway between it and then continue dying down. But as of now, this area here has been tapped into and mitigated. This is no longer good. This is a 4-hour, closed above it. That's gone. This area here is still good though. So let me just keep extending it to the right. That's a 4-hour fair value gap 50% mark. Let me see. Yeah, so these are going to be the areas of premium that I want to be shorting at. Fair value gap over here, but it's really small, so I'm not really going to consider it. There's nothing really else in this area that I want to focus on besides this 1.05985, which is this area that I'm expecting price action to come test out and then shoot up. But it looks like Euro USD is just so bullish. It's not, I'm not seeing that pullback that I need. Let's check it out on the 4 hours to see what's it look like. We have this fair value gap over here that's close enough to the 50% mark. We're going to consider that mitigated. We have this other fair value gap in here above this order block, but below this order block as well. That's kind of odd. Don't really see too many of those. And then we have another fair value gap over here that's sitting above an order block as well. We're going to mark both of these out. These are going to be points of interest for us on a lower time frame. We're looking at 4 hour right now. We're going to consider these. We're going to label them 4 hour fair value gap 50%. Let's stretch that out a little bit. Lock them. Boom. Good to go. We're going to set alerts on these as well. Set your alerts. We're going to trade off these. All right. Alerts are set. If you're using ACAP, these are the coordinates for them. 1.08621. Second one is 1.08279. Over here, we have been tapped to and mitigated. This is the 50% mark, just a couple of pips underneath. I'm going to consider that as mitigated because it's close enough to the 50% mark for me to consider it mitigated. Wow, this is playing out pretty well. I might even enter a limit short over here at the 0.79, honestly. The way that's playing out, that looks really good. So what I would do is something like this. Give it a little bit of breathing room. Target structure low. It's 2.82. But I should target this structure low right here. Because if you look left, that hasn't been mitigated. This has. So that should in theory not hold it back at all. But then if it breaks through here, then there's nothing holding it until you get to this daily 4 hour fair value gap. So let me just target that. But this level here, I'm going to make that my take profit one. and then take nice 75% there. Take the full profit right there at that daily fair value gap at 3.59. If I take 75% at the TP1, you're looking at 3.1 risk to reward. Still solid. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to set my limit orders on my charts. This is not a signal. This is not for you to follow. This is just for you to see more of my like internal thought process. That looks pretty good to me. Right? I'm looking at the structures to continue down. 4 hour, that's pretty much what I see on the 4 hour. But once we get to like an extreme premium, I want to short it. I feel comfortable shorting it. I'm still but my bias is still very strong that we have to come down and test this daily for our fair value gap 50% mark. So that's what I'm betting on. Unfortunately, it didn't do that exactly how I wanted to, which was supposed to, you know, tap into the 4 hour bearish fair value gap and then just dump into that area and then pump up into that area that I have over there for the July 2023 and then die down after that. But my bias, I'm still backing up my bias. I wanted to tap into here. So I'm looking for potential entries for price action to come back into here. The daily 4 hour fair value gap. All right, we're going to go into GBP USD. I'm going to start removing some of these weird pairs here that I have. Some of these actually play out really well. Where's my Aussie USD? Yeah, I want to do Aussie USD after this. One of my boys does that. He trades Aussie USD and it goes very, very well for him. Ooh, this was not nice. This is ranging. It broke out of the range. Dun dun dun. Broke out of the range. And this is a daily. What do we see over here? That's a fair value gap that needs to be mitigated. It's tiny, but it looks like price action might even go up there and test it out. Let's mark you up. It's a good thing we were watching this and just following it. You're going to be red. Oh yeah, you're going to be red. Because we are bearish with you. Hella bearish. Pretty small, but it's a daily fair value gap, so... And we have plenty of news this week. So we might get a nice, beautiful wick in there. And then rejection. It'll probably die out after that. This fair value gap over here, though, looks solid. Trend based, right? Trend is your friend. It's going with the trend. We're going to color your blue. And you're right after a market structure shift. And this is the breakout of this range. Super bullish. Let's label you. Daily fair value gap 50% mark. Let's lock you in. Let's set an alert. We're trading with the trend. Might even throw a limit order on this one. I always go to the candle right before the fair value gap. So it's this one over here. Going to the bottom of it, which is this wick over here as well. And then target 2 to 1. Or... yeah, I'm not going to be greedy. I'm going to leave it here. Now, this could go one of two ways. It can go directly for that fair value gap over there that's bearish, which is right over here. We're looking at 1.30452. Or if it retraces, it pulls back, taps into this daily fair value gap 50% mark, picks up liquidity, and then shoots up, then I'm going to target that as my take profit versus 2 to 1. Because at that point, it's collecting all this liquidity and it needs to use that liquidity for something, right? When price actions like picking up liquidity, I think of it as like something like fueling up. So it's obviously fueling up to go somewhere. So it's either going up into another market structure or it's tapping into like a PD array. And right now our point of interest is right up here. That's pretty much all we're looking into right now. So if price action taps into here first before reaching over here, that's going to be my target. If price action just continues going up by itself, not tapping into here, I'm just going to leave it at a 2-to-1 just to be safe. What do we see on the 4-hour? Going down into the 4-hour, we see a bunch of fair value gaps over here. We see an overlap with the daily. We're going to mark that as well. 4-hour daily fair value gap 50% mark. And yeah, I don't really see much of anything else. We see small fair value gaps, but nothing that I really want to mark out. Nothing that looks great, especially because that one's sitting right above this one. That's 4-hour and the daily mark together. So I'm gonna use the other two because they had that confluence going. This one, it has to break through the one above it in order to get to the other two. So my bias is still gonna stay the same. I'm focusing on that point of interest. This small 4-hour fair value gap above that, not too concerned about that. Now, does anybody have any questions for me inside the Discord? All right, moving on to Aussie USD. All right, Aussie USD. Let's go to weekly. So on Aussie USD, we marked over here daily, weekly fair value gap. We were expecting rejection off of here. We have two different areas marked out that I definitely want to play. So we have this one over here, which is, it looks like it's already playing out, 0.66360. And then we have this area up here, which is 0.67571. Let's mark this out again. I did have an alert here, but I want to set another one just in case we do have a candle closure above it. Weekly is holding back. It looks like it might reject off this completely. It looks like a beautiful reversal, honestly. Beautiful rejection off this fair value gap. Price action looks like it's losing footing. You're seeing the market structure, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. Trend is going bearish. So we're looking for bearish positions on higher time frames. So like your weekly, your dailies, I'm looking for bearish positions. Let's go into daily. Look how crazy this is. Daily fair value gap 50% mark over here. It pretty much tapped into it. With the spread, this would have tapped you in because that's like what, like 1 or 2 pips off. That's fucking nuts. That tapped into there. That's beautiful. That would have been a disgusting play. Price actions over here. You have price action here, you have bearish, but it tapped into a weekly fair value gap. So I don't know. Honestly, I'm still bearish. That's my position. That's my bias. We have a fair value gap over here that for some reason I didn't identify. Let's identify you. You're red. You're red because you're dead. Daily fair value gap 50% mark. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, because I counted it with the daily and the weekly over here. Because it's still inside the weekly time frame, the weekly fair value gap. But to be a little bit more accurate and just snipe it out, kind of like this. So we could snipe it on the lower time frames. For fair value gap, this one got disgustingly taken out. This got taken out as well. Let's clean up the charts a little bit. This is still active, daily and 4-hour fair value gap 50% mark. This got close enough to it, but I'm not going to count it. Let's mark these out. These are daily fair value gaps. These are breaker structures right after a market structure shift. Should hold some weight to it. All right, so I'm going to lock these here. These are both daily fair value gaps. We're going to label both of these. Daily fair value gap 50% mark. Set your alerts on these as well. We're looking at 0.65, 420, 420. And then we have 0.65976 up here. These are both daily fair value gap 50% marks. I'm bearish. Weekly looks like it's bearish. I'm looking for bearish positions. Hopefully this rejects off it. Continuation to the downside. Might even ping pong in these areas here and then seek and destroy this over here, which is 0.67562. Only time will tell. We'll keep watching these lower time frames. Let's see how 4 hour looks. Oh, it would have been sick if this was like a bearish fair value gap on the 4 hour. That would have been nasty. Would have been nasty. 4 hour overlapping with the daily, and then these 4 hours overlapping with the daily as well. And that's fine. I'm not going to really focus too much on this one over here, but these dailies here, they look pretty sweet. Now, does anybody have any questions for me when it comes to this? These are the points of interest we identified. We identified those two weekly/daily points of interest. Those are the ones we really want to hone in on. Right now, we're playing out on one of them. It looks like we might actually continue to the downside, but we have two different bullish fair value gap dailies that we have to focus on the way down. So that's going to be a little bit challenging on the way down. We're going to see how price action plays out. We have this other daily and weekly that needs to be tapped into. So it looks like this one might send everything else down after all these areas have been liquidated and enough liquidity has been taken out in order for it to come back up here and then go down. Does anybody have any questions for me in regards to Aussie USD? Cool, thumbs up. Let's move on to the next pair. I'm going to do USD JPY. That's going to be the last pair I do for the evening. How do you look? Let's see it on the weekly. Weekly, we're so bullish. I'm expecting it to come down into this weekly fair value gap 50% mark. Get liquidity, continuation to the upside. Looks like it might be doing that sometime this week or next. These candles are pretty big. We're going to get a couple different news days throughout this week. We should have enough volume to push it down into this fair value gap and then shoot up. We have an order block right underneath this fair value gap, which gives me additional confluence. And then daily fair value gap 50% mark inside the order block as well. We have a good amount of confluences in here. Daily fair value gap, weekly fair value gap, and then both of them are sitting above the order block. Continuation with the bullish trend. Higher high, higher low. And this, not so much a higher high, but this, once it forms, will be a higher low. And then what I'm looking is for price action to come and take out this buy side liquidity. Shoot up through it a little bit. Pull back. And then continue to making higher highs, higher lows. Daily, what's the daily look like? Daily, we had this 4 hour daily fair value gap. Now it's an inverted fair value gap. Let's turn you into red. Oh yeah, there's going to be a sweet spot right here. Set your alerts on this one. This is going to play out really nice for you guys. Once price action comes into that area there, I will feel very, very confident to short it. I'm going to set my limit position. Always the candle before the fair value gap. So this one over here. And then target 2 to 1. But I will target the weekly fair value gap. Lock this in. Sell side liquidity. That's what it looks like for me. This looks good. Weekly fair value gap. Get your coordinates over here. 143.137. daily 142.526. Charts might be a little bit off. My broker, 8cap, your broker might vary. So double check on that. We're working on pretty much all the PD arrays and the structures that you see here. So if you do see a weekly fair value gap over here, might be off a little bit, a few dollars. Same thing with the daily fair value gap. Just mark it on your charts. Make sure you set your alerts. Make sure we're playing on these points of interest, because these points of interest are very, very important for us. And they're also higher probability trades. Now, guys, that's going to be it for me tonight. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. I know daylight savings time was this morning, so a lot of you guys might be a little bit off when it comes to the time, mentally and physically, and it's perfectly fine. Next week, we're going to get back into it, 8 p.m. And all I want for all of you guys to do is just have a very profitable trading week. Continue managing your risk to reward, right? Risk management is super important. Even if you have a really, really bad strategy, super low win rate, as long as your risk management, you're making more on your wins and less on your losses, you're good to go. If you need any more user strategies, they're going to be posted in the Discord. They are under the user training strategies. I'm going to post the link here in the Discord as well, into the live chat. And yeah, just have a very profitable trading week this week. Thank you very much, everybody. Next week, we're going to be here, same time, same place. Enjoy yourselves. Have a great rest of your weekend, and goodbye for now. Thank you.